Hello and welcome to the Mindset Michelle TV show. We're so super excited that you can join us again today to be here on this show and to have today's extra special guest join us, Tom Dawkins. Hello, Tom.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much for having me.
It's so wonderful to be able to spend this time with you and to have you. I really do appreciate you giving up your time to come on the show today. I appreciate how incredibly busy you are. And for those that don't know Tom, he works in that social movement, that social enterprise space. And as most people are aware of today, it's an area that's growing and exploding, and everybody is pretty much going, how can I get involved? What can I do? And as you can see from the screen, those that are watching, you can see that Tom's got Start Some Good. So that's the company or organisation that he founded and that he's very involved with, and they're doing incredible stuff. But before we go there, I really want to know more about you, Tom. What is your backstory and how did you come to be doing what you're doing now?
I've always been a bit of a starter-upper of things, the kind of person who if it felt like something was lacking, I didn't, tend to, maybe I complained a little bit, but then I kind of got on with thinking about how I could fill that gap. And at the same time was always very interested in social change and politics. I grew up in quite a politically minded family. I had relatives who were politicians. That was kind of in and around me in terms of our family culture. And so for quite an early age, I had a sense that kind of what I was looking for in life wasn't a job per se, but was, something more akin to a cause, were things that I cared about and impact I wanted to create. And my specific, I guess, sense of purpose came out of a fortunate experience, that I was very privileged to have as a teenager, where I went on exchange for a year to the US, which would have been really formative and interesting in its own right, just getting a chance kind of. I think what's powerful about travel wherever you go is that opportunity to step out of your everyday context. So, to spend a year as a teenager with a different family in a different country, in a different kind of, in a small kind of regional city in rural Washington state and so on would have already, I think, changed me enormously. But then a very particular thing happened while I was there, which is that the exchange program I was on partnered with an organization that was organizing this incredible essentially convening of global leaders called the State of the World Forum. And it brought together multiple Nobel Peace Prize winners. Ronald Reagan, Margaret Thatcher, Thabo Mbeki, then vice president, later president of South Africa, and just all these amazing people. And I think as somewhat of an afterthought, I've always thought, they thought, well, wouldn't it be nice to have some young people here? We're talking about the future. And they did, but they didn't have the time, inclination, or budget, to do this global search for worthy young leaders. So they do the smart thing, and they partnered with an exchange organization to bring together diverse young people who were already conveniently located in America. And so I went along to this event that I really had no right to be at. If they had done a genuine search for worthy young leaders, I wouldn't have heard about it. I wouldn't have applied. And if I had applied, I wouldn't have been selected. But there I was, one of 60 Australians on the year program with this particular organization. They knew I was politically minded. I was invited to write an essay why I would like to attend the State of the World Forum. And I got to go to this event, and it was just incredibly life-changing for me. I met all these incredible global change makers from, Rigoberta Menchú Tam, the Nobel Peace Prize winner from Guatemala, Thich Nhat Hanh, the leader of the Vietnamese Buddhists, just these incredible people, including these incredible young people from 32 different countries around the world, or 32 of us from 28 different countries. And what was really powerful about that, Michelle, was that we weren't just there. People were listening to us. All these incredible adult leaders, all these globally important people stopped and kind of wanted to hear what we had to say as young people. And that to me is kind of at the heart of any empowering experience, is both having, obviously you need the capacity to be willing to show up and share your voice. You need the opportunity, which sometimes sadly comes from privilege and luck, as mine did. I had to be very privileged to be in America on exchange for a year, and then very lucky that they even asked me to be one of 5 of 60 to even write that essay and then get selected. But it's not enough if no one's listening. You got to feel like someone's actually kind of listening to what you're saying as well. So I had that experience, and I walked away just really my mind kind of blown open, and this sense of responsibility. We'd been told that the 32 of us were there to kind of represent young people. On the first day we arrived, it was kind of like almost like you ever watch that show, Thank God You're Here? You know, the skit improv show? It felt a bit like that. It was like we walked through this portal and we were riding the other side and everyone just said, thank God you're here. You're here to represent 3 billion young people. I'm like, what are they talking about? That's impossible. And so as I kind of came out of that, I both had this sense for the first time of kind of a real sense of meaning, you know, that I wanted to do something with my life. I wanted to make a difference. I felt like it was important. I'd really been, you know, rapidly indoctrinated in the idea that it was really important that young people's voices are heard. But I realized that what I just experienced was in some ways how youth empowerment in particular tends to happen, or youth voices are heard, which is a process that is kind of tokenistic, haphazard, and deeply biased towards wealth, deeply biased towards a particular type of young person of whom I'm a perfect embodiment, who grew up in a political family, was taught to, you know, like white male, middle class, confident in the use of my own voice, have always been encouraged to use it, have always been congratulated when I used it. I'm willing to take up space. I'm willing to speak up on things I didn't really have much grounding of knowledge in. But I realized that's what it looks like. And in essence, what I've been doing ever since then is trying to find better ways of engaging people that are less tokenistic, that are more universal, that give everyone the chance to tell their story and be involved in creating a different future. And that's taken a variety of different forms over the years. I've founded a handful of different nonprofits and for-profit social enterprises. I opened the first co-working space in Australia. I've toured a film festival around the country. I've worked for global NGOs in DC. But what I became really fixated on, that led to the founding of Start Some Good, was how we support new ideas at that really early stage. That traditionally the social sector talks a good game about innovation, but is not actually very good at supporting innovation, really struggles with the risk and reward trade-offs of investing in and supporting things that are not yet proven to work. Very good at supporting things already proven to work, not very good at helping us prove which new things could work. And so having spent a couple of years in San Francisco and really been excited to experience what felt like, you know, for the first time in my life, what a pro-innovation ecosystem feels like, and seeing within that ecosystem the really crucial role played by those people willing to support those innovators and new ideas at that very early stage, through funding, through capacity building, through accelerated programs, through access to infrastructure and technology. And so that led to the founding of Start Some Good, initially as a crowdfunding platform. And these days, as I guess a kind of somewhat diversified, you know, we platforms and programs, accelerators, design programs, and 2 different flavors of crowdfunding platform now, one that does lending and the other a more traditional project-based crowdfunding platform at startsomegood.com, which is where it all began.
Wow, I'm just, you know, taking in some of the amazing and incredible journey that you were sharing there, and I'm really touched again by you hear so much about it, but the wonderful way you described that as a teenager, that opportunity in the US and that exposure to the big minds, the big names, and the big ways of viewing the world at such a formative stage for you, and being able to feel like you were a part of that. And I really did hear when you were saying that on the other side, there was that opportunity, but there was also that responsibility that they then imparted to you, that you now represent every young person in the world. And I applaud how much then you have taken that away and worked through the different roles and startups and things that you've done to land in somewhat of a sweet spot with Start Some Good and the incredible work that we'll go through a little bit more in a minute. I'm fascinated with all of that, and that self-awareness you have, especially as well with the white male and the privilege of being in America in the first place as an exchange, etc. But I'm interested with so much self-awareness and so much self-direction, if you like, and taking you into that sweet spot of doing what you love and loving what you do. What now then means success to you? What does success mean to you today?
I mean, it's always, I think, for me, been about feeling of service to the world and feeling like I'm making an impact. And I think I'm really fortunate to have, I guess, been inspired and guided in that by my parents, both of whom were very purpose-driven in the work they did. One in public broadcasting, my mother spent her entire career with the ABC and was incredibly passionate about the role that a public broadcaster plays in a society, and had been a really pioneering feminist journalist and had, kind of done a lot of important work putting unheard voices on the air. And my dad's a town planner, but an incredibly purpose-driven town planner. Thinks, incredibly thoughtful and passionate about how public space, how essentially town planning is how we organize space, and space has enormous social and environmental impacts. And so I think I was lucky to grow up with, I guess, this template of work. I think some people grow up with a template of work, is that, you don't live to work, you work to live, and you find your passions. Hang on, other way around. Did I get that wrong? You don't live to work. I'm screwing this up, but essentially you find your passions outside of work, and work's this thing you have to do so you can pay for your passions and pay the rent and so on. And that was just like never at all the vibe with my parents. Now, of course, when people do very passionate things, sometimes they're really caught up in that. So I had very busy parents as well, and that has some of its own challenges growing up, but I am really grateful that that was just what I thought work was. That was kind of what I had seen. And as I said, my uncle was in politics. That felt fairly purpose-driven. My another uncle ran an arts organization. Like I really, felt like the majority of the kind of adults I could see felt like kind of work was a calling. Work was something they were really passionate about. And so that was just kind of the template in my mind. I didn't know what that was going to be. I didn't have kind of a job that I was ever really, after I gave up the idea of being a fireman at 7 or something, I didn't kind of at any point from then, and still not really today, have a particular job that I think is, the job that I want or whatever. I don't really think in those terms. But I have really pursued my interests in, and my passion and my sense of calling around, social change, and particularly kind of the way I guess I think about that, and what I'm passionate about is this idea of kind of democratic social change, which means community-led, and how it is we empower people, community members, not just kind of to participate in the ballot box, but to make things happen, to show up and to collaborate together, to share our stories, to think about and design the kind of future we want, and to take action to bring that future into being.
So is that what am I hearing correctly? That's what you're then saying is your success, your definition of success
so
is.
Success to me is feeling like I'm doing that, really. Feeling like I just don't think I can ever be. I tried to sell out a couple of times in the sense of having a good, well-paid job that was, that was fine. But as soon as, the last time I was working in Silicon Valley for like a really interesting, on some level, organization. To be honest, and I was enjoying where I was living, and I had the best salary of my life, and could have just had a really nice lifestyle, but no, so had to start some good, and that's because while it was a good organization, I didn't really feel like my job, as I was the online digital communications director, and it didn't really actually feel like it mattered. Like it felt like they had to have one of those because we'd reached 2010 and everyone had to have one of those. But it wasn't really core to their theory of change. They didn't raise money online. They worked through, cancer research organizations. They didn't have like a constituency. There was no call to action. We weren't asking anyone to do anything. We were just like, FYI, everyone, this is what we're up to. And that, even though it was kind of a meaningful impact organization, began to feel, I think, inadequately satisfying for me in terms of the impact I felt like my work was creating. And so before I knew it, without really having made a completely conscious decision in some ways to do this, certainly not a very strategic one, found myself working, and devoting a lot of my time to start some good. And that's happened to me a couple of times when I felt like, hey, this will be nice for a while, not to worry about all the other stuff that comes with, being entrepreneurial and making things happen. Just do a good job, draw a good salary, and do other things that are fun. But somehow I just find myself, slipping into starting something new. I just can't help myself. It's my own dysfunctional way. I seem to be drawn to like making myself over busy and over complicating my life. But I think that is because that's what success to me means to me. Ultimately, like on a deep level, just to have a well-paid job is not success, and therefore I find myself dissatisfied if that's kind of what I have going on. If it's not also ticking that, feel like I'm making a real impact in the world. And that might be partly my own act. I feel like I'm making a big difference. But that's what I'm trying to do.
And I even in reflecting back what you're saying, or even acknowledging what you're saying, I feel like I'm minimizing, and I don't want to be minimizing, the actual amazing words and amazing passion that you're sharing and showing. To say no to well-paid money and well-paid job, to say no to companies that are actually saying that they're doing good and they're working in a good environment and everything, to kind of say, okay, that there's a time and place for people and for doing that, but for you, the time and place is to really passionately follow the purpose in your life and the drive that you have to make a difference and to feel like you're making a difference, whatever else you are moving away from, to be doing that. And that typically is then working lots of hours and lots of this and lots of that to make sure that that happens, because that's part of that passion that you bring. But for viewers, and not everybody has that same kind of greater calling or greater passion, what sort of tips or suggestions would you have about, even in a small way, following things that might be more passionate or more rewarding, feeling especially rewarding for them, and the mindset of how they can keep doing that, say day in, day out, when they may be in an environment where they've got kids in school, they've got this, they've got that, so they may feel a little bit more trapped. But you want to encourage them that they can, with that right mindset, keep moving more towards where their passions lay.
Well, I think there's particularly an opportunity now. You mentioned at the start in the intro that the social enterprise sector, so, businesses that seek to earn a profit or at a minimum be sustainable in the long run through their trade, but which also, have a kind of impact model at the very heart of what they do. That whole world is growing really fast, and that creates lots of new opportunities for people who don't have to be founders. We're not going to have a world where everyone founds a new social enterprise. That sounds like madness and highly dysfunctional. All these one person enterprises running around. And as the sector matures, there's more opportunities for people at all different levels. There's some quite large social enterprises now, and if you're the kind of person who just, your comfort level is to work in a larger organization that is better established, that has more resources, that can provide greater security, well, there's opportunities to do that too in the social enterprise sector. So I guess my call to everyone would be, don't feel like it does have to involve necessarily that the kind of, all out like sacrifices in terms of salary or lifestyle necessarily. And just when you are looking for a change or looking for something new, just check what you could find in the social enterprise world first. Google social enterprise jobs, look at some specialist platforms like Ethical Jobs, where social enterprises often, and nonprofits as well, of course, some very big nonprofits. And don't assume that you have to be Mother Teresa to focus your skills and your talents and your career on making a difference. I think there are ways, more and more, this is what the whole social enterprise movement is about, that there's ways of doing that allow us to achieve what we need in life. And for some, that's wealth. They want to become fabulously rich and famous. That's fantastic. Go you. So long as you do that while doing good in the world, I'm totally stoked for you. If that fame and fortune came from making impact while making impact, what an exciting example for everyone. For others, it's just a stable paycheck. That's great too. You can, so I think we're moving on from a world that assumes that to be a kind of a professional change maker means that you're, a hippie or an activist or living on the poverty line. It can mean that you're Elon Musk in some cases as well, or that you're, an accountant who works for a social enterprise accounting firm. And, your job is not so different from other accountants, but you have the incredible joy that comes from knowing that when you do show up to work every day, you're not just doing accounts, you're doing that in a way that is making that broader difference to the world. And I think that more and more of us, and maybe as a fundamental human need, really want to feel like we're part of something bigger, something that isn't just showing, that isn't just the 9-to-5 grind, that really does have that bigger meaning and context. And I think that's when you feel true agency and true pride in your work as well, when you see your talents really kind of contributing in that way.
And I really hear about, and thank you for clarifying that we're not talking about everybody run out tomorrow and resign and start up your own company, that there are other ways.
Some of you should do that for sure. I shouldn't, our business is helping people start social enterprises and so on. So we in fact are all about serving founders, but I know that's not for everyone. If it is for everyone, though, call me. But it's for you rather.
Yes. If it's for someone watching, yes, definitely call Tom.
Because I also think too many people do have a great idea in their head and don't get it out there. And it's kind of one of my, I guess, hypotheses, and in some ways, the premise upon which Start Some Good was founded on, is that we've already got all the ideas we need. I actually think but I think many of those ideas are either trapped in a small scale, like working beautifully somewhere, in a small scale, but struggling to kind of break out of that scale and grow and become bigger, or trapped inside someone's head who's had an amazing idea but doesn't know who to tell and doesn't know how to get started and doesn't know how to turn an idea into a business or a nonprofit or a movement. And so just helping people do that, I think that's super important as well. If you are one of those people sitting on that idea or how to get started, definitely, just get involved. There's heaps of people who want to help you get started. The other exciting thing with the growth of the sector overall is more and more organizations like Start Some Good that are here to help other founders to embark on this journey as well.
And I really love that element of what you're saying around if you have an idea or if you have a small foundling small business or something, that there is more and more like Start Some Good. I'd say go to Start Some Good, but there's more and more in that social enterprise ecosystem. So there's different ways that you can start to explore. And going back to what you mentioned earlier about the youth, representing and the responsibility of all of the youth on the planet, but I also think that if you're a younger person watching this or younger people, one of the things to do is to really encourage them to experiment and to see whether entrepreneurship and an entrepreneur passion life is something that may be more suited to them than the traditional education system or the traditional job or traditional this or traditional that. Because what we are seeing with the COVID and technology and all these changes is that the opportunities are just expanding and expanding and expanding. And so one of the reasons I have this show is to try and help people to expand the mindset as well. So you can be an accountant in an organisation that fulfills that passion for making a difference on the planet. You can be a TikTok superstar at the age of 15, earning millions of dollars. The opportunities are all out there, and to really embrace that mindset that, anything is possible now, and to go and talk to people like yourself in the social enterprise space to help refine that passion.
Yeah, exactly. And I like that you said it's about, experimenting, because I think that when it comes to mindset, I really think that's almost the most important thing, is to view what you're doing as an experiment, as a trial, to kind of live in that scientist mode as best as you can. And I think the danger where people get really burnt out and frustrated is when they're too wedded to their solution. And one of the things I like to preach to people who are in the early stages of a social entrepreneurship journey or a change making journey is you want to be in love with the problem you're trying to solve, not in love with your solution. Your solution's probably wrong or might not work or will need revision. But what really matters is that you're really focused on the problem you're trying to address, the opportunity you're trying to, and if that's what you really care about, then changing up the solution, trying new things, that's not a big deal, provided it's actually helping you get towards, where you want to go. Whereas what can happen is that people fall in love with, a particular approach to making a difference, and then become very stuck in that potentially, or fixed on that, and then when that's not working, that can be really devastating if that's what you've kind of invested all your hopes and dreams in. Or what they can do is overinvest, be far too confident early on when the idea hasn't been proven or validated, and you don't know whether you have any customers or anyone wants it yet, and kind of go too far and driven by passion. Again, a part of a risk, because we are so passionate, is that you kind of don't apply some of, you got to kind of bring in, your kind of left brain as well to apply some kind of some startup science to what you're doing. But what underpins that startup science, what they say, kind of if you were to summarize this kind of whole idea of there's a science to starting new companies today, startup science into one kind of phrase, is that your mission is to learn, not to succeed at first, validated learning. And so discovering something that doesn't work, that's a success. You've just created a piece of validated learning. You know more now than you did before. But I think a lot of people go into it and they just, they just really want to succeed off the bat, of course, as we all do. And so having the right mindset is really, because there are different, obviously, like a performance mindset is quite different, and in some ways in approach sounds like it should be the right mindset for an early stage startup endeavor, but isn't, because a performance mindset is often based around operationalizing and getting to that point of excellence. But there's that again is over investing in operational excellence when you don't even know if what you're doing is the right thing. And so I've got to
and
have
I
that scientist mindset, I think, at the start to try and it's the only way to kind of enjoy the journey and to appreciate what you're learning along the way, even if it's not what you had hoped to discover. It's still a discovery. It still takes you closer to your ultimate goal.
And I really love how you're describing that learning journey. And I was reflecting as you were talking about your journey and how your passion for making a difference. The solution at one point looked like working for an organization in San Francisco. And the solution at another point looked like something else, and it looked like something else. But you really well at the beginning encapsulated the problem you were trying to solve with Start Some Good was that there was all these great ideas and great startups, but they didn't necessarily have the structure and the support to move beyond just being an idea or just being a small startup. So you honed in on what the problem was. And as you shared earlier, you now have different funding models, different this, different that, because the solutions have all changed as Start Some Good has been looking at different aspects of the problem to try and solve. And I think that model that you're demonstrating so beautifully is the same model that you're talking about now. You became clearer and clearer about the problem that you wanted to solve, but then the way and the solution of solving it has been different as time has gone by.
That's right. And I'll give you, I mean, we Start Some Good started as a crowdfunding platform, quite a traditional sort of a crowdfunding platform. And if our mission was to create a successful crowdfunding platform, we would have ended up in a really different place. Then our mission is to increase the pace of innovation for social change. And one of the real gaps we observed very early on was that, again, crowdfunding is just a tool. And you don't really empower people by just handing them a tool. You got to teach them how to use that tool confidently and competently and successfully in order for that to actually move the needle in terms of social change. If it's just the same people who could fundraise anywhere that are showing up and fundraising on your platform, that may a successful business make. And on the outside, it'll still be a social impact business. We only help social impact projects raise funds. But if you're not truly grappling with who, the kind of everyone's different starting point and who is best placed to use that tool, both in terms of their confidence, skills, but all importantly for crowdfunding networks and existing community, then you're kind of just allowing those pre-existing inequalities to then kind of transplant over the opportunity you're providing. And so we always had this kind of insistently high touch approach to actually trying to teach people how to crowdfund, which actually doesn't work at all with the crowdfunding business model. Crowdfunding platform needs, is a platform business model, and platform business models work if they're high volume, low touch, highly operationalized, operationally excellent. If you can reduce the incremental cost of acquiring one new crowdfunding campaign, say, to essentially zero, then any amount of success, even very low, can still be profitable. And that's why some of the biggest crowdfunding platforms in the world have very shockingly low success rates. People don't realize, but single digit success rate, 90% plus of all crowdfunding platforms on many of the, campaigns on many of the leading platforms are failing because they're not provided with any additional assistance or guidance or coaching to help them succeed. But we had to reinvent the company and come up with a whole different business model, more focused on the coaching and the capacity building and the courses, still having a crowdfunding platform. We still love crowdfunding, but we just, we weren't willing to make it work under the normal crowdfunding business model. And again, that's that difference between being focused on really caring about the problem, and the problem was helping get, innovative projects started and funded, versus caring about the solution, which would have been how do we create a profitable crowdfunding platform. And we would have been another Indiegogo if that had been the path we'd gone down.
Exactly. And I hear very strongly again around that focus on the learning and the learning around the problem and the iterations. If people did want to learn more about you and more about Start Some Good, where's the best place to contact you?
Michelle, that you'd never ask. People can contact us actually in too many places, to be honest. One of the funny in terms of falling behind, we're overhauling our digital presence at the moment to kind of tell a more integrated story of here are the different ways we help. Right now, they're kind of on a few different websites as we've rolled out different things. But the best place to follow us is, come to startsomegood.com as a starting point. Sign up for one of our free email courses, or you can join our founder community for a low monthly cost and get invited to all our events and access to our online community. If you want to follow me, probably LinkedIn is the place that I'm most publicly kind of social and share opportunities and learnings. Twitter as well, where I'm Tom JD on Twitter.
Fabulous. And very quickly then, if you were to share some advice with your younger self, what might that advice be?
I appreciated you sharing that question with me earlier so I could think about it. It's actually, I was kind of chuckling as I contemplated it because I was so bad at taking advice from older people. Actually, it was like through my whole life, ask my parents, ask anyone. Like I've never actually been as good as I'd like to be. I think one of my struggles as an entrepreneur is to be better at, and that I've worked on getting better at. I'm better now, I would like to believe. But I was hopeless then at really taking advice. So I like, what do old people know? You know, we're building an organization to empower young people. They don't know how to do what we're trying to do. They've got nothing to tell me, which of course is not true. They may not know some aspects of that, but so I'm just trying to think about what would I say that if I did like just rock up to my younger self, that he wouldn't be like, screw you, old man. But I think probably I just you know, I mean, there were there are times where certainly I worried about what path I was on and felt very uncertain about where I was going and what I wanted to do. As I said, I've never had a really kind of clear life plan, certainly not one that kind of mapped out along the line of jobs, traditional jobs. That's what I want to be and so on. And so certainly there are times where I worried that kind of I've ended up being slightly unemployable, that all I can do is work for myself and so on. And that even began with, my choice of university degree. I did a double major in philosophy and political science. And people at the time, were like, haha, you're never going to have a job. And I was like, I'm pretty sure like knowing how to think is going to be really useful. And I feel relatively confident. But I guess I just tell myself, you're right about that. That actually the most important skill in the future is going to be learning how to think, learning how to communicate complex ideas, learning how to inspire people to take action. Like you're actually kind of focusing on the right things here. And don't worry about if you don't know how to read a spreadsheet or, don't have maybe some of the technical skills that don't have a degree that lines up neatly with an external job pathway. You're going to be all right. You're going to figure it out.
And I definitely think that you're going to be all right. And as always, I'm so super excited when we speak, Tom, and so passionate as well for Start Some Good and the incredible work that you and the team are doing. And thank you so very much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to share my story. And, if it has resonated with any of your listeners with, and they're feeling that calling to try out, get an idea out of their head into the world, would love to have that opportunity to help them do that, because we need everyone in all the different ways, founders, team members, conscious consumers, building this more social kind of form of capitalism, this more sustainable economy is going to take everyone in all the different roles we play in life. So wishing everyone, encouraging everyone just to think about maybe what's one more thing you could do, or just next time you're faced with a big decision about your career, or even just little decisions, who you're going to buy from. See if you can, have a look at social enterprises first, and see if I'm sure there'll be a way for you to get involved, and it'll feel good to be part of making a difference in this way.
And that's such a wonderful way to finish up there, about whether you're buying a loaf of bread or some milk or whatever, deciding about your next accountant to help you with your tax. There is a way that you, in every day and in every transaction and idea that you're doing, you can bring more and more of that focus about social and how to save the planet, build softer, greater ecosystems to support communities and people, and the work that wonderful people like Tom and his team are doing. But for now, thank you to the viewers again, and it's been an incredible show again. I just feel so privileged to have such inspirational people on the show. But for now, from my heart to your heart, be great, be fabulous, and be you.